Get started. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. As I'm working on my book, finishing that up, I wanted to talk specifically about one of the really main pieces of it, which is how to prepare for English conversations, how to feel confident about them, how to not be worried or nervous that you might get stuck or say the wrong thing, something like that. It's actually much easier than most people think, but the way most learners try to practice for communication is not the way that you should be practicing like you would practice for playing the piano or trying to learn a dance routine or something like that. So we're going to talk about that in this video. I'll just say hello quickly to people. Nice to see everybody there. So we got Tom, Lewis in the house, George over there. Some usual faces. Nice to see you all. Hopefully you're having a nice day wherever you are. Sylvana, nice to see you from Brazil. Yes, like say hello to each other. Joel Mint, nice to see you. The beard suits me, huh? And Net over there as well. Access is back, accessing the video as usual. Well, I don't know how long I'll keep the beard. I was talking with my younger daughter, Noelle. She said shave it off. So, and maybe my wife will start complaining pretty soon as well. We'll see. Anyway, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is the kind of preparation you need for a conversation is different than the kind of preparation you need for practicing an instrument or learning a speech or anything else where you are the only one doing something and you can control every aspect of it. I've talked about this before, but I was just thinking it was a good idea to refresh, maybe have just another quick video about this. We'll see how long today's video goes. It actually should be pretty quick, but I will stay to answer questions if anybody has any. So first, just preparing for anything, I'm gonna write a word up here that really makes conversations different from most of the things that people would think about for typical practice when they think about the idea of practice. And this is the unpredict. So I'm just gonna say unpredictability, the unpredictability. I-T-Y, unpredictable. I can't write unpredictability. B-I-L-I, wait, predictability, unpredictability. Okay, if I've got that correct. But pardon my sloppy handwriting. I should just write it in the chat and make it easier for people. Let me see if I can do that. Actually, I don't know if I'm signed in. Yeah, I can't. I'm not signed in, actually. But anyway, the unpredictability is what makes everything different for communication. Basically, you never know what the other person is going to say. Thank you, Tom. Unpredictability. Wait a minute. Oops. Actually, you're right. Unpredictability. Excuse me. But thank you very much. So the main point here is that when you're in a conversation, you don't know what other person or what the other person or other people are going to say. So you can't really practice for a conversation, like an actual conversation, the way you could practice for something like playing an instrument or whatever. So if I am a piano player, I'm learning a new piano song and trying to play in a concert, and I'm the only one playing, and the only thing is just me getting very good at playing that song, then I don't really have much to think about. It's not like the song will change in the middle of the concert or someone will try to come on stage and stop me from playing, and it's like a video game where, I don't know, maybe something happens and I can't control what's going on. But in conversations, you never know what's going to happen. So each conversation is unique. Even if you try to plan things ahead of time or memorize specific phrases, you may or may not use those, and the other people may be saying, you know, other things that you just don't expect. So the whole idea is getting the unexpected. And so preparing this, you can really prepare for this in stages. And the simple way to do this is by seeing examples of how other people do things before you have your conversations. All right. So the basic idea of this video is thinking about how you would train for for the unpredictable, because you can't memorize everything. You can't be prepared for how every conversation will go, because the conversation unfolds naturally. The other person says something, then you have to respond in some way. Maybe you don't know exactly how they're going to say something, or they begin talking about something else. It's really difficult to control that, but you don't have to control it if you feel prepared, and you do that just by seeing other people do examples of that thing, like getting examples of other people having conversations about the kinds of things you would like to talk about. So as an example, before we even talk about specific conversations, the core idea is understanding the situation and then thinking about what vocabulary would go for that situation. When native speakers are learning their language, this is the same thing that happened to you when you were younger. Your parents or somebody would be doing something, and then they would speak as they're doing that thing. So they're describing something like, I am writing words on a board. I am writing words on a board. And when I think about like what's happening here, I'm not trying to express like this particular thing, like I am writing. So I'm actually just writing some words on the board. I'm saying what I'm doing. I'm describing that. But I could describe this in a different way. So the situation is me writing things on a board, but I could say I'm writing words, or I'm writing letters, or I'm making sentences, or I'm scribbling like this. I'm more kind of scribbling on the board rather than like neatly writing things. So there is a situation, and then there are many ways that you might express that. So the way you become prepared for these things is even before or within a conversation, there are lots of specific pieces of a conversation, like how you change the subject, or how you apologize, or how you switch from like you're talking about one thing, then you say but something else. So often people are learning specific things like for young kids when they're basically just starting to talk, they learn simple things like and but as ways of changing the sentence or changing the topic or describing something else, saying the opposite thing, because they see adults talking about those same things and in that situation. So if I'm explaining something, but then I want to say the opposite, I would use the word but. Or I could use something like however. And there are different ways that I could express that, but the point is I have a situation and I'm learning these various ways of expressing that. So I begin with a situation and then the vocab for that thing. So when you're preparing for conversations themselves, you begin with the smaller pieces of a conversation. So things about changing topics, or how do I switch from one, like I'm explaining one idea and then I start talking about something else. So how do I switch from one thing to the next, or how do I ask a question, or how do I get more information or go into more detail? Those are the general kinds of things where I might talk about, like, what's a good example? So I might talk about, I could be really talking about anything and use all of these different ways of, connecting sentences or things like that. So I've made quite a few videos about doing that, but I want to bring that all together for this one and talk about wherever you feel stuck in conversations is really where you should be focusing so that you feel confident and prepared for conversations. So as an example, let's say the highest level of communication would be really feeling comfortable talking about whatever you like. It doesn't matter what the conversation topic is. And maybe you might not know like every word, which is fine. I don't know every word in English, and there are many topics that I probably couldn't have intelligent conversations about. So if I'm learning about even fixing cars, I use this example a lot because I don't know much about fixing cars. So like if someone starts asking me, I could learn about that. I could have a conversation with someone about fixing cars, or if I go to a mechanic and they say, oh, well, this problem is here, I would say, hey, can you explain that in plain English for me? So this is a common expression that natives use. So in plain. So plain like regular or just usual. So in plain English. So even native speakers will use this expression, and you can use it as well. If you're getting a lot of technical vocabulary, like I'm at the mechanic and they're saying, well, the carburetor is disconnected from this other thing and it's causing this. I'd say, well, I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. Can you just explain that? Please explain that in plain English. And they say like, well, this box is not connected to that box, or something very basic and simple that even a child would understand. Okay, so I don't want you to feel bad. You could also say simply, yes, simply in English, but in plain English is a very common way of expressing that. There are also book series that talk about like For Dummies or The Idiot's Guide to Something. So it's just saying we're going to explain something to you very simply so you understand it easily and without using lots of technical or difficult or advanced vocabulary. All right. So remember that even explaining something about fixing a car, you could express it with more difficult or advanced specific vocabulary that mechanics usually use, or plain English, basic things that normal people would use in everyday conversations who, like me, don't know much about cars. All right. So when thinking about that, if you imagine, and you can do this as kind of a test for yourself about the kinds of things you can speak comfortably about, or yes, plain yogurt is the same idea. So plain is like there's no flavor, there's no extra things on it. It's just very simple, very easy, very common. So when you're thinking about what you're able to speak confidently about, are you able to have really good conversations about basically anything? Or are you noticing, well, I could speak confidently about some things but not others, or an even lower level than that would be, even in conversations, I just can't link sentences together. So wherever you are on that scale, if you're lower, then you really want to have more time looking at individual things, like really focusing on that for watching conversations. So as an example, let's say I'm watching an interview of some Japanese people. So if I'm learning Japanese, I would be watching an interview just as an example of something. And I might not feel comfortable or understand the whole thing, but I might be focusing specifically on how do they change topics, or how do they interrupt each other. So I don't want to focus on everything. I'm just looking for particular things to focus on and then just learning about that. So even if I don't understand something else, then I want to have just a good focus on a particular thing so that I can learn how to do that by seeing examples of other people do that. So if I'm just focusing on however or but or whatever, just for that particular thing, then I can focus on that. So what we do in Fluent for Life, this is the same kind of thing where we have a particular conversation and we could focus on lots of different things about it. You could pick really lots of different grammar points, or particularly maybe difficult or more common vocabulary structures, things like that in a conversation. But the point is just to pick something and then focus on that and really get lots of review, seeing that thing in different ways used by different speakers, and then you will feel much more confident about it. But again, think about the specific area where you feel like maybe you feel some level of confidence, but you still don't feel maybe like talking about something because you're not 100% confident about it. So it depends on you specifically, but that's how you would think about it. So for me, I'm able to have conversations in Japanese just fine. And the things I like learning about are different ways of expressing particular topics. So that's like a really interesting thing for me. And that's one of the things I recommend. That's one of the things I teach a lot about, using naturally varied review. This kind of review where you have a particular situation and then describe that with different vocabulary. So how might different people express something in different ways? So even looking at this chat, if I go back and look at the specific phrasing of, let's say someone wants to just greet someone. So how could you do that? You could say, hey, or hello, or how are you, or how have you been, or how is your family? It's the same situation of greeting someone, but we have these different ways of expressing that. So I'm paying attention for those things. And if I go back and look at those, like, some people say like hello, or some people say good morning, or some people say hi, or how you been, or hello there, or hi there. If you look back at all the different ways people are greeting right in this chat on this video, you'll see examples of naturally varied review. So that's the kind of thing I pay attention for when I'm focused on this more specific training for conversations. So again, the nice thing about speaking is that I don't need to get into conversations until I feel comfortable, unless I'm forced to speak because like something happens and I have to talk for whatever reason. But for the most part, you should be able to spend more time getting review of things and seeing other people talk before you speak. Okay, so remember, you don't need to spend a lot of time trying to practice certain things. You get a better sense for what to use as you see other people speaking. And now that could be other people speaking in a conversation with you, but it's a lot easier if you're just watching other people speaking, like them talking to other people, like a conversation or a dialogue, or you could watch a group of people, or even just one person explaining something. So let's say, for example, I have like a pretty good understanding of basic things and how like I might connect sentences, but I just don't have a deeper vocabulary for talking about more interesting topics or more diverse topics or something like that. So maybe I use quite simple language, and I can't use like the mechanic example. If I go to a mechanic, I don't really feel confident talking about fixing cars because I don't even know the names of car pieces other than like the body and the wheels. That's why my drawings are so bad about cars. I can't draw cars well because I don't know the pieces of cars very well. But again, if I want to do that, it would be very easy for me to go right here on YouTube and watch a bunch of people talking to mechanics, or mechanics explaining things about cars, or learning the different pieces of an automobile. It would be quite easy to do it if I cared about doing that. So let's say my car breaks down in Japan, and I know I need to go to a mechanic to find out how to fix that thing. So before I go to the mechanic, it would make sense for me to watch some videos just learning about, how do people talk about things? How do you explain this? Or what are these car parts in Japanese? How do people explain those things? And again, it's the preparation, not from trying to memorize a bunch of phrases, although you might have some specific things, like in the car example, my wheel or some particular part of the car or the engine or whatever is not working. So if that's the case, then I can actually learn about that specific thing. But if I'm talking about really anything else, and I just want to be able to have a conversation and go with the flow of those other people, then it would make sense to see some other people doing that first, and then I will feel much more confident and prepared in the conversation. Does that make sense? So the kind of practice that you do if you're trying to learn a song, or I'm trying to learn some dance moves, something like that, it's going to be different than the kind of thing I'll be doing when I'm learning about how to have a good conversation, because I really want to be prepared for all of the variety that might happen, even though a lot of things will not. I just don't know which things will happen in the conversation. And so seeing lots of other people have conversations about that thing will make me feel much more confident about it. All right, let me go back and look at chat, see if anybody has any questions about this. I think people are excited talking about yogurt over there. Abdo says, please, can you use indirect question? What do you mean indirect question? Give me an example of what you're trying to talk about. Try not to think about grammar point and think more about a situation. What is the situation you're trying to describe? And this is another thing when people ask me about a specific grammar point, it's a lot easier if you try to think about it more like, what is the situation? And so this will help you understand the grammar point, but it will also help you understand other ways to express that same thing. And sometimes there's like an easier way to express something with a less complicated grammar point that's easier for people to understand and remember. All right. So let's get past the Siganes says, hi, Drew, and Yes, you guys are talking about plain yogurt. Let's see. All right. It looks like it makes sense over there. Yeah, you guys like the expression in plain English. Jolman says, you made a live stream a few months ago about the 5 laws of thinking in English. I just bought your fluency program. Do you have information about the 5 laws of thinking in English in the program? All of that is applied in the program itself. So like one of the laws is talking about how we can change things as we learn. So we might think about how we apply something from one situation and apply it in another. So in the book I'm writing right now, I'd give the example, I'll just kind of go through how we talk about the different pieces of learning and what actually destroys doubt, the doubts that stop you from speaking. If you can destroy those doubts, if you don't have doubts anymore, that's when you start speaking fluently. So in the book, I just give the example of some kids walking in the woods, and the sun is setting and you can see the shadows going through the trees, and the kids are starting to get quite nervous, so they're walking through a forest, and at first they're having a good time, they're laughing and joking around, but as it gets darker and they're feeling a bit lost, then I want to show, okay, like now we don't know exactly what's going on, they're feeling quite nervous, they get quiet, and then suddenly behind them they hear a sound and they see something run across the path like right behind them. And then one of the kids says, run, and then they just start taking off running and running as fast as they can, and they get to a clearing, so an open area where there are fewer trees, and they're huffing and puffing like this. And one guy says, well, whew, like I think like the trouble must be over, or I hope it's over. And then another guy says, well, we're not out of the woods yet. So we're not out of the woods yet. So this is an example of how a situation teaches you vocabulary. So in this situation, something crazy just happened. The kids are all scared, and they're literally physically in some trees, like in a forest or in a woods, and they narrowly escape or run away from something that could have been dangerous or cause some trouble or whatever. We don't really know what it was. But one character says, well, I guess like the problem is gone. And the other character says, well, maybe, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods yet. So if I were to draw this and think about the idea figuratively, so we're just going to imagine this is a bunch of trees over here, and then I will use my little red marker here to show some kids. You know, the kids are walking through it. It's kind of a path they're walking on, lots of trees. They don't really know what they're going, and they start running, and they get, you know, about over here, and maybe there are still, you know, some other trees, but it's a fewer number of trees. And so they're out here, and they look back, and they don't see anything chasing after them. They were in the middle of the forest over here. Something ran across it's like something large ran across the path behind them, and it made a loud noise, and it scared them. They started running, so they get over here, and one character says, whew, that was close. It looks like maybe the trouble is gone. And then another character says, we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods yet. So we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods yet. So here we have a situation where maybe there are still some trees until they get back to their car, and their car, let's draw the car over here. So here's the car. We're kind of looking at this from above, seeing what's going on. These are the tops of the trees and the kids over here. So until the kids get back to the car, they won't really feel safe. So they just escaped some trouble, but they still have, you know, we don't know for sure. They're not 100% safe. They can't completely relax. So we're not out of the woods yet. This is a phrase that comes from this expression here, this situation of being in the woods and then having something go wrong. Now, this idea about like the laws of thinking in English, we want to take this and think about when we might apply it someplace else. So part of the naturally varied review we get is thinking about how we take a physical thing like this and then apply it in a different situation. Like maybe I'm at the hospital and my wife is sick and she just had an operation and I'm talking with the doctor. I say, "Doctor, how is she?" The doctor says, "Well, she's doing better, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods yet." So there could still maybe be a problem. We're not 100% safe or sure what's going on. We can't relax completely yet, but maybe, we did have, some good news or something. Okay. Or maybe in like a sports situation. So the same idea, like a team is, they're still down, but they just scored some points. And so they're feeling pretty good, but now the other team has the ball. And so we still don't know what's going to happen. So we're not out of the woods yet. So the coach says, "Okay, everyone stay focused. We're not out of the woods yet. We still can't relax until we complete the game." Okay. So that idea, like all of those things, you will see all of those laws used in Fluent for Life without worrying about it's a good idea you watch that video about the 5 laws of thinking in English. But you will see exactly what I'm doing when I'm teaching, and this is like one example of that. All right. So again, when you're learning something, we want to think about how we learn the information, how we apply the information, and really try to extend vocabulary as much as possible. So most people, when they're learning a language, they begin with something, just the vocabulary in their language, and then they try to translate that into English. But then if they get a translation, maybe they'll forget that and they don't remember what something means and they can't use it confidently. But the translation means they don't really understand the vocabulary like a native would. So me, if I'm learning something, just like I'm teaching this expression here, we're not out of the woods yet, then this means, okay, something happened, maybe we were able to get, some good news or something, but we can't relax yet. That's the idea, okay? And then you can recognize this much more easily when you hear it in other situations. But as a learner, you might think, how might I apply this? So you could even ask, like ChatGPT, for example, give me some examples of how I might apply this in, whatever that situation is. So like completely different. Like how might I apply this if I'm talking about doctors, or if I'm talking about sports, or if I'm talking about relationships or whatever. So maybe I had like an argument with my wife and we kind of like worked something out. We feel a little bit better, but maybe something else happens. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we are talking and trying to repair the relationship or whatever. Okay, so there are lots of different situations where we might use "we're not out of the woods yet," and of course, I'm not just talking about us. Like it could be me. I tried doing something and I did it all right, but I still can't relax. I'm not out of the woods yet. So I'm not out of the woods yet. You're not out of the woods yet. He or she is not out of the woods yet. Same idea. So seeing a variety of examples, this is just one way where we take what we learn and try to think about it more like a native. So asking yourself, how might I apply this in different situations? If you haven't seen that video, go watch that. It's the 5 laws of thinking in English. Just search the channel for that. But it explains a lot of the tools that I use when I'm teaching, and then you can apply those same things yourself as you learn. All right, looks like a bunch of comments coming in. Let me see if I skipped anything. So yeah, Fluent for Life is interesting because there are a lot of lessons, and obviously there are, I think, over 13,000 words and phrases and other things. So there's lots of vocabulary, but you will also get actual tips and kinds of things like this that I've covered for many years, and you will find those. So they'll be kind of little nuggets that you discover as you go through the program. Let's see, what did I miss? Yes, Garizono Chimpo mo. Haro. Brother for the world. Let's see. Yes, I would watch the live video, Joel. But welcome again to the program. Let us know if you have any questions about it. Always excited to welcome new people and get more people fluent. Let's see. MBO is back. Why am I having problems with remembering words when I want to speak in English? There could be a number of reasons, but the most common one is that you're probably learning English through your native language. And if you are learning in English, you're not really understanding it well enough to erase any doubts or to really put things deep into your brain to make you remember them. So people will get a list of words and then not really review those or get enough varied examples to try to understand it like a native would. And because of that, the vocabulary doesn't really stick in your mind. I talk about this often, but the idea of a web, like a spider web, is much more. If you think about all the connections and the way let me just draw a spider web over here. Does that look like spider web? That's pretty good, I guess. So one interesting thing about a spider web is even if part of it is broken or something, the rest of it still works just fine. All right. So it is the network, all of these we call these nodes. So a node is all of the points here. This is a node here, a node like that, a node. So the nodes are all connected, and if something is broken in one place, you can still make connections through the other nodes that you have. This is why it's important to think about building vocabulary as constructing a network rather than trying to get like two nodes. So you have a node in your native language and a node in English through a translation. If this gets disconnected, like if you forget vocabulary, then what are you going to do? All right. But in this example, if we maybe forget one way of expressing something, we can easily switch to something else. Or if we can't remember like one way of how we learn something, we can probably remember another example. So this is why it's important to learn things and build these networks like that. And all together, they begin, these networks connect with other networks, and it all makes it very easy for you to remember what you say. So depending on how you're learning, it's usually because you're learning through translations or not getting enough examples that really help you understand things like a native would. All right. So if you're only seeing something in a textbook and a translation, what you should do is start seeing more examples of that vocabulary. Like if you use Youglish. So Youglish.com, they will let you get this kind of naturally varied review where you can put in some specific vocabulary and see different examples of that in other situations. Like it'll give you YouTube videos where even if you search "we're not out of the woods yet," you would probably find many videos that use that phrase, and you can see how, oh, look at that. People are talking about this for war or sports or dating or medical stuff, whatever it could be. All right, but that's the main reason why people forget things when they learn. Let's see. What did I miss? I'm skipping past the yogurt stuff over here. Okay, got that. Hello, teacher. Is it possible to become fluent without saying a single word, just by listening to the right input in the perfect context, or is speaking at least 10 to 20% of the time important? Well, speaking is like... I usually give the example, it's certainly a lot less important than people think it is. So I draw these little pyramids here, little triangles. What people usually do, like this is the kind of the typical, like we'll just say this is ESL, learning English as a second language. And often what people do is they learn something a little bit, like the example I just gave for why people forget words. So there's a little bit of learning that happens, and then there's a lot of effort put into trying to speak. And usually people don't get to speak that much, but they think a lot about wishing they were speaking more. So they will just and that's one of the biggest complaints I get from learners is that I can't get fluent because I don't speak enough. I don't have people to practice with or whatever, because they think speaking is what's required in order to get fluent. All right, so they learn something, don't really understand it very well, don't remember it very well, and then try to use it in conversations or try to repeat it to themselves. And this is why most people don't become good speakers, because they don't actually spend a lot of time on the learning. So what I do is the opposite. I actually spend most of my time on the learning phase, and this just means we're really erasing doubt. So I don't want to just give you a definition of a word. I really want to help you understand it. I'll spend 5 minutes explaining something like, we're not out of the woods yet. And as you hear that, you begin to feel, oh, like I understand why people use this. I understand what situations it might be used in. I've heard different natives using it in different contexts. All of those things, they again build this network up here that helps you understand. So that when you do speak, speaking is obviously the goal. When you do speak, you just start using things correctly. So this happens to me all the time. I will spend my time learning some Japanese, just listening to things or paying attention to people, watching TV shows or whatever. And then there's little time in my day, very little time, that I'm actually speaking Japanese. But when I do speak, I speak fluently. And even for things that I've not practiced, I don't spend my time repeating vocabulary. The key is simply to understand it. All right. So I could hear something many, many times, or even repeat it, like say it over and over and over again. But the only way I really feel confident about saying something in a conversation is if I have no doubt about what I'm saying. Okay. So if I'm thinking about something and I don't know quite how to say that, or I'm worried about whatever, then I need to spend more time learning or reviewing that thing. So that's what I mentioned at the beginning of this video, talking about preparing for conversations. The preparation really comes from you seeing lots of examples of how people speak. So you can get some of that from me, but you should get a lot more of it from other people talking about particular topics. If I watch a bunch of people doing something, just like if you have not seen it already, I recommend watching the espresso video I made. So this shows examples of 4 different people making espresso and how some of the vocabulary is used, and it's the same, some of it is different, but you get the general idea for, number 1, how to make espresso, but number 2, all of the vocabulary and the various ways people might speak. So you get the vocabulary, the grammar, the pronunciation, all of it is together rather than separate like in a typical lesson. So to give you a very quick answer to your question, yes, speaking is required, but it's more like what you do when you get to the end. So I don't have to spend my time talking in order to develop the ability to speak. But I really should spend my time learning and understanding things very well, so I have no doubt about them. If you still have doubt, review it more, okay? But you're not really going to you're not going to become a better speaker by repeating things, because again, the situation of a conversation is different than the situation of practicing, like I'm trying to practice a trumpet or, playing the flute or something. If I'm practicing that, it's just me, and then I have to play the music correctly. There's one way to do it correctly, so I can practice something until I'm perfect. But conversations are unpredictable. That's the real key difference between something like practicing an instrument and practicing or preparing for a conversation. And that's why we need a different kind of preparation for that. And it's a kind of preparation where we're seeing lots of examples that help us erase doubt, rather than just trying to take things we know and repeat them again and again. So yes, speaking is useful, but it's really just the last thing you do when you really understand something. So you'll know when you feel confident about something because you feel okay about saying it. That's how it works. But you can certainly practice saying things to yourself or whatever if you'd like to do that. Unpredictability. I really like this word. Yes, it's an interesting word, unpredictability. You can't predict what's going to happen, and that's really the kind of, it's humans in general, and this is not just for language learning, but humans in general don't like unpredictability. We like plans. We like knowing what's happening. And so that's kind of the fun thing about being a human. We don't know what the future will bring. So can you be prepared for that as best you can and then deal with things as they happen? Joman says, thanks, I wanted to buy your book. Please keep us posted. Yes, I think you're on the list, so you should know when the book comes out. And again, it'll be like digital at first. I may release a physical copy as well. We'll see. Gabriel says, my problem right now is that I can understand almost perfectly every conversation in English, but I can't speak with fluency yet. What you recommend me? So what do you recommend I do, or what do you recommend for me? I would think about what specifically your issue is. Like, I can't diagnose that just from a comment, but if I could listen to you speak, I would probably hear either problems with your vocabulary or something else. Maybe you're making mistakes with grammar, but there's something you're uncertain about, and that's something like you can feel that pretty easily. Like, I don't use this grammar point because I don't feel sure about using it correctly. So that would be the thing you would focus on. And really, the doubt should be your guide. So the doubt lets you know what things you need to work on, because that's what's stopping you from speaking. So solve that problem, and then you'll become a much more confident speaker. Alejandro says, yo, what's up, Drew? Greetings from Mexico. All right. Let's see. And it says, how should I focus on and study the natural expressions such as collocations, phrasal verbs, idioms to make them unforgettable and truly immersive? Well, you just see examples of natives using them. This is what we do in Fluent for Life. So whether you learn with me or not, you should just be getting lots of examples about those things, and you can focus on those particular pieces in conversations. So combine the thing you're interested in, like, I don't know, whatever your hobby or your job or something like that you like if you like video games or you like cooking or whatever that thing is, you can watch cooking shows and then pay attention. This is what I mentioned earlier in this video about focusing on the pieces of things, like the pieces of conversations. So I can watch a cooking show and pay attention for a lot of phrasal verbs I see. And I notice, like, oh, they're using like this verb and this preposition here to combine something and to make like something into, I don't know, like I put into, or something like popped out or flowed out. So those are examples of common things, especially in cooking, because we can see physical actions happening. And when you see that, then you can feel much more confident and remember those things and understand them, because you're building that network of seeing, like, oh, overflow is like something going over something else. Like, I pour too much wine in a glass and it overflows the glass, or it flows over the glass. So you don't have to like personally immerse yourself like you're speaking, but you should watch lots of examples of other people doing that. That's how we learn. All right, Dejan says, hello from Banja Luka, Bosnia. Nice to see you there. Nona says, I love you, teacher. Well, thank you, with a little hand up there. And it says, Drew, you are graying early, still in your 40s. Well, what do you want me to do about that? Thank you for noticing. Tongo says, Drew, I found your method helpful, although it's hard to explain to someone like a friend who's just starting in English and I don't know the words. And how would you go about that? So this is exactly why I'm writing my book, because I've spent many years, like, I'll try to make this very simple for you. I'll tell you like two things about this one. First is, so number one, just my own history with teaching. The first one is I'm basically teaching the same way this whole time. So I like, if you watch my first YouTube video, it's the same kind of thing that I'm talking about in this video right now. And one of those first videos I made, so I talked about phonics for a series of those. But one of the first videos I made about fluency was an example of naturally varied review, where you listen to different people saying the same thing. All right, so I'm basically teaching the same way this whole time. But I've had to it's been like a crazy journey trying to think about how to explain this process to people this whole time. So the basic way for me, like what I started saying at the very beginning, is you just need to learn English like a native. That's it. And just do the same things that natives do. But when people hear that, they think, wait a minute, I'm not a native. How do I do that? It's not possible for me to do that, or I don't live in an English-speaking country, or whatever the reason is that they can't do something. And people are very good at finding reasons why they can't do things. So after that, I was thinking like, okay, we can't really say that, even though it's true, but I have to explain what that means. And then I was thinking, okay, what's another way? It's like, well, what about learning English as a first language? So I still talk about these ideas, and this is more for the people who know what I do. And again, I like to explain things in different ways. It's a kind of naturally varied review. But again, over this time, I'm thinking about different ways to express these ideas. And the thing that made me want to write the book is that, like, now I know, and I'll just write it. I'll write it here. It's basically like a sentence that you can tell anybody else who's learning the language. The fastest way to get fluent, and this would work in any language, although I focus on English, obviously. The fastest way to get fluent is to destroy the doubts that stop you from speaking. The fastest way to get fluent is to destroy the doubts that stop you from speaking. So that's what I do. So it took me, I don't know, 20 years to think about that. So I never felt, I mean, I wanted to write a book for a while, but I never really was like, it's still too complicated, and I'm not thinking about what is like the best way to understand this. But people really seem to understand the idea of just destroying the doubt that stops you from speaking. So like if you're nervous about pronouncing something, then you won't say it. Or if you're nervous about a grammar point, you won't say that either. But if you feel confident about that thing, if there's no doubt, then you say it. All right. So my goal as the teacher is to eliminate any doubt you have about speaking. And it could be about pronunciation or grammar or vocabulary, whatever it is, but that's the idea. So if you're explaining to someone else what I do, or explaining to someone else like how they should become fluent, the basic idea is you just need to destroy any doubts you have about speaking. And the way you do that, which I talk about in the book, is learning real vocabulary, getting fluency triggers to help you understand the vocabulary, and naturally varied review, where you get to see lots of different examples about how people do things. So it's a basic idea which still requires some explanation, but the core of it is just destroying doubt. If you're nervous about something, you won't use it in a conversation. It doesn't matter how many times you say that thing. You could repeat something to yourself or others 100 times, but as soon as you understand something well and you feel that little click in your mind, your head, like, now I get it, then you will be able to use something. So that's the basic idea. All right, looks like you guys are speaking with each other. Let me go through these quickly. Let's see. All right. Okay, you guys are speaking with each other. Marcus says, thanks for the help. Thanks for help us gentlemen. Currently, I can speak with other natives. However, in some conversations, like work conversations, I don't know how to express some of the ideas. What do you recommend? I would pay attention. Like if you're at work, I would listen to a lot of people talking and see how they talk about things. Or go online and get examples of the same thing. So whatever your work is, there are probably people who talk about it. Like if I'm in real estate or finance or, I don't know, sales or, whatever that thing is, if you're talking about a particular industry or a particular kind of job, you will find information about all of those things. The more you pay attention to that, it's like if I go to a barber shop every day, I'm probably going to get a haircut at some point. Like even by accident, I will get a haircut. So the more I spend my time doing that, but I don't need to physically go there or even speak to those people. I just need to understand lots of different examples, and that's what helps me feel confident. It's erasing the doubt about things that lets me speak. One just finished his exam, and he was confident about his answers. He says, great, I got it. His friend may reply, we're not out of the woods yet. They should wait for their scores. Yeah, this is a tricky situation because, like, I mean, you might feel, yeah, we're not out of the woods yet, but the actual end is already determined by how the score went. So a different thing would be like if you're thinking about the school year and you take, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 tests in that year, you pass the first 3 or 4 tests and you feel confident, but the last test is going to be very difficult. So you might pass the first one and you say, wow, I'm feeling very good about that. But then like another friend of yours says, well, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have this other one to go. So in the test example you gave, the result of the test is already known. You just don't know what that is. So maybe the teacher will know what the test is, but like, so it's a little different from being, I mean, it's similar, so I can see how you came up with that, but typically there's an unknown aspect like for everybody. Nobody knows what might happen next. So that's when we might use, we're not out of the woods yet. But if I know, or like the teacher knows that I failed, even though I didn't, that's a little bit different. It's a similar idea though. Let's see. That's pretty cool to get a comment from Marcus Phoenix over here. Let's see. And Muna says, wow. And Richard says, my issue is that I understand what they say to me, but when I talk to them, I stumble a bit and feel lost. How can I solve this? Then you should be spending more time really looking at where your doubts are. When you talk about stumbling when you speak, about what? Like you're having trouble with specific grammar points or you can't remember specific vocabulary? I promise you that if you watch more people talking and having good conversations and you really pay attention, like actively listen by focusing on particular pieces of that, then it will be a lot easier for you to feel confident in conversations as well, because you will have lots of examples of how people do it. Diego says, I can understand when some people speak, but others I can't. Yeah, well, that's common. You're going to find, like me right now, I'm being intentionally clear, and a lot of people are not. So if I listen to some people speak clearly, other people do not. You know, it just depends on the situation. And they might change how they speak, but instead of me expecting them to change, it's a lot easier if I just get lots of examples of, like, here's a bit of English. We're not out of the woods yet. So I say it nice and clearly so you can understand what I'm talking about. But someone else might say, oh, we're not out of the woods yet. Not out of the woods yet. Not out of the woods yet. And they can say it quickly because other people understand what they're talking about. If people start using new vocabulary or they're trying to teach something to someone else, they would probably say it more clearly. But if everybody knows the situation, not out of the woods yet. Not out of the woods yet. Then it's going to be more difficult. So it's a good idea to see things clearly spoken and then get more examples of them made by people who are not speaking clear, or if they have a different accent or something like that. Let's see. And MBO, is it useful to use an English to English dictionary to become fluent? Sure. It's better than using a translation if you like an English to whatever your language, your native language is. But remember, better than a dictionary is actually seeing real people speak in real situations. Like that's the ultimate goal. That's where you want to get, so you should start there. Start from the situation. Ollie says, I understand almost all you say, teacher, but my vocabulary is very limited. I'm trying to memorize them. Yeah, don't spend time trying to memorize vocabulary. Think about what you're interested in, number one, and then watch lots of content about that. And you will naturally absorb the vocabulary and also learn how that vocabulary can be used in other situations. All right. Tom says, but even if you don't have any doubts, I'll find it hard to say sentences without struggle when saying, can't your walk and chew a gum at the same time? Well, so that's you trying to memorize a particular expression, like walk and chew gum at the same time. So I've heard that expression many times, walking and chewing gum at the same time. So I have no doubt about saying that, but it sounds like you do have doubt about that thing. So when I say doubt, it's like anything that you're uncertain about learning or using, or you can't remember it, whatever that thing is. Like that doubt can be in any kind of form in that way. But the more you see examples of things, the more you will feel confident about saying them as well. Let's see. And Ulrich says, hello, Drew. I would like to know the best way to understand English fast. You see lots of examples of it. of real people speaking in a real natural way, but do it for your level. So if you're at a low level, you should watch some children's shows and read children's books and things like that. You made a mistake there. I meant you. Wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah, well, I understand what that it looks like that's a typo there, but Nona says, I'm taking notes of your advice. Glad to hear it. Holly says, I understand you better than my husband that is British. You'd say who is British in that case, but with a Scottish accent, yes. So if your husband speaks and he's like William Wallace from Braveheart or whatever, and he's got a thick accent, then yeah, it's going to be more difficult to understand what he's saying, even if you're more used to him speaking. Miriam says, greetings from Venezuela. And let's see, from Brazil. To solve an unpredictable issue, you should be good at improvisation. Yes, so you develop the ability to improvise by seeing lots of other people speak. And in that way, I can take pieces from this conversation and that conversation, and I see how to connect them together and then use that fluently. Okay? So if I see like two people say the word, I was doing this, but I was doing that other thing, then I should feel pretty confident, I guess that sentence structure is a good way of saying like, this thing could probably apply in other situations, or that's how I might use it. So I start saying myself, I'm hot, but I'm happy to keep working. Or like, I'm tired, but I will still go out and exercise. Okay, so those examples are things that help me understand the word but, and then I feel confident, I have no doubt about using it. All right, so when I'm seeing things, I'm getting lots of examples. That's what's going to make me feel better. And I will also see I can begin improvising, like doing something that's not from a script or something that I haven't seen. I'm able to take information from things I've already seen and then apply it in different ways. That's what enables me to improvise. If I have no information, then I can't improvise because I don't know, I have nothing to improvise with. But improvisation means you're able to take information and recombine it or mix it or use it in different situations that are different from the original. All right, so you only learn how to do that if you get many, many examples of seeing people do things like that. Let's see. Okay, it looks like you guys are speaking with each other, but glad to hear. All right, so let's see. Looking forward to reading your book. Yes, glad to hear it, Annette. The book should lay out everything, and it's taken me a long time to put everything together, but I'm excited to release it and give it to people, and hopefully people understand it. And that's my big thing about like making it all about one idea about destroying doubt. And the core of the book is that you should get fluent and then speak. So that's the main idea. Let's see. Drew, you are the only one who talks fast, but I understand perfectly. You are awesome. Well, remember that I'm speaking quickly, but I'm also blending the sounds of my words together in a natural way that's understandable for people. So I'm trying to still be clear with my speech rather than mumble and say things and you can't understand what I'm saying. But it's very difficult to understand when most people speak very quickly and uncleanly. My brain shuts down right away. Yeah, and again, to stop that, if you only listen to teachers, then it's going to be very difficult to get to that higher level of understanding people who are not clear. So you need to spend more time listening to that kind of English as well. But it becomes easier if you know what you're listening to before you listen to it. So, for example, you hear something from me, like I explain some vocabulary, and then you see some natives using it who are less clear. Wouldn't that help you become a much more confident listener? You would feel more confident like, oh, Drew explained that. You hear somebody else use it. Wait a minute, I remember that phrase. And even if they don't speak it clearly, you understand what they're saying. It makes you feel more confident, it erases more doubt, and that's how it gets you fluent. All right, so this is what we do in Fluent for Life. This is why the program is organized the way it is, to give you different examples of the same thing. It's just another kind of naturally varied review. All right, Gabriel says, lately I've been thinking about trying to translate videos in my native language into English as an idea to improve my English. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think it would be counterproductive? I mean, there's probably more efficient things you could do. It would certainly test your ability at translating stuff, but like instead of me trying to translate one thing, I would rather see a bunch of different natives talking about something, and that's just like a faster and easier way to get that same kind of practice. But if you want to put an extra layer of challenge on that, you might want to do that. But again, like the thing about translating is that there are actually many different ways you might say something, and that's why I'd rather hear lots of different examples of different natives expressing things. Greetings from Ecuador, says 1 minute long after a little blackout. Let's see. Voninio? That's an interesting name, Voninio. There's a lot of O's and I's in that Voninio Castro. Hello, everybody. Hello, teacher. I'm Voninio from Brazil. I used to watch your videos. I really enjoy your teaching. Glad to hear. And Marcus Phoenix is back. What should I do when in a conversation someone speaks about a topic I don't know about, an expression? What do you think is? Well, if you just don't know what something means, ask them. Just say, oh, what does that mean? What are you talking about? You don't have to feel shy in a conversation about asking them for that. Like if I'm talking to a mechanic, a typical thing is like I'm going to pretend I know what I'm talking about, or listening to something and like I pretend I'm listening and I understand, but really I don't. So I could do that, or I could just say, I'm sorry, I don't really know much about this topic. Could you help me understand it? And most people will say, sure. People like to talk about the things that they know about and that they enjoy, and so let them tell you about stuff. Just say, I'm sorry, I don't know much about this. Could you tell me more? Or could you explain it in plain English for me? All right, so most people, especially if it's someone trying to teach you something or give you information about, like your car or whatever, it's important that you know that. So let them teach you and make sure you understand it. That is the reason increasing vocabulary sounds to be the important first step. Well, it's not really increasing vocabulary. Like, you don't want to just learn more words. It's much better to have a smaller vocabulary that you actually have no doubt about. So if I have 100 words and I don't really feel very confident about them, that's not going to help me very much in conversations. I might understand some people, but I won't speak very well. Instead, if I have a smaller vocabulary, and you'll notice in these videos I should actually analyze all the vocabulary I use in these videos, but it's a lot of the same simple words again and again. I'm not using a lot of advanced vocabulary or idioms or other things like that. It's all pretty similar like kinds of things in my videos, and I do that intentionally because I want to show you that you don't need a big vocabulary to be fluent. Fluency doesn't mean a large vocabulary. It just means how well you're able to communicate. Let's see. So that is the reason increasing. Oh, okay, I got that one there. All right, and you guys are speaking to each other. Hey, Drew. Let's see, and we're in the heart of Brazil. Oh, okay, you guys are speaking with each other. All right, fantastic. Look at that. We got to the end of the comments over here. But hopefully people get the idea. For you have to evaluate your own English unless you have someone there to do that for you. But the basic idea is that you will think about where you get stuck in conversations. So if you can't have a conversation at all, then you should really focus more on the basics and making sure that you can make connections like even basic sentence connectors like and but and or, making sure you can use those, that you understand them well. You've seen lots of examples of how other natives are doing that. So not just teachers, not just people who are speaking clearly, but seeing lots of examples of natives actually use these things in the real world. And that will make you feel much more confident that you know how to do it too. So remember, this is a different kind of practice, a different kind of preparation than what you would do if you're just trying to, like, if I want to practice a punch and learn how to do it well, I need to do that thing many, many times and just repeat that again and again. But I'm not doing that for English. I really need to get lots of varied input, which helps me develop a network, because it's a different kind of output, a different kind of skill, and because it's unpredictable, I can't like have a specific thing that I need to remember, and that will also take pressure off me if I'm trying to memorize things. I don't need to try to do that. I just need to see how different people talk. I remember like an example some years ago for Japanese for myself. I was I was watching someone talk about like the percentage of something, and often Japanese people will say like nan pasento, like what percent. That kind of English is borrowed for Japanese. But this person said like nanwari, and I said, oh, look at that. That's very interesting. Like you can talk about like the piece of something in that same way, like nanwari. And so I heard that. I didn't need to repeat it many times. I just understood in this situation or in this context, this is also some vocabulary I could use. And there, my vocabulary grew, but not because I was trying to memorize things or repeat things. It's just I made the connection and I had no doubt about how it was being used. So I heard it used, I knew the pronunciation, I knew the context. All those questions were answered for me and very quickly. Another example I'll share, this was a recent one, is just being at a coffee shop, and usually people ask like for here or to go. So that's the English version. Someone might come to your restaurant or whatever, they're going to order some food. Is it for here or to go? Or you might hear like for here or takeout, something like that. And so in Japanese, it's like tennai o mochikaeri. So it's like, is it for like eating in or taking away? And then I heard a different expression, which was like tabeteiku, nondeiku. Like, are you going to eat here and then go, or drink here and then go? And then I thought, oh wow, isn't that interesting? It's a much more casual way of expressing that, but that's because the staff know me pretty well. But in that case, look at that. Here's a different way, like people might describe that same situation or ask me if I'm having something here or to go, or if I'm going to like eat first and then leave. That's what they're asking. So in that case, again, I'm seeing lots of examples and understanding it from the context because I'm paying attention to that, not because I'm looking for specific phrases to use for certain situations. I might do that maybe at the start just to understand some vocabulary, but it's a lot better to start with the situation and then see lots of examples. All right, I'll answer these final questions over here. Let's see. Alice says, you are giving us a lot of useful tips. I'm writing down. Glad to hear. And so remember, these videos are also available. You can watch them again, and the transcript should be available maybe in a day, I guess. Teacher, I would like to hear from you about connected speech. Well, I don't want to talk about a whole bunch about that, but you can see lots of examples of that on YouTube with people explaining that already. Looks like Vilfredo, you look great, better with beards. Glad to hear. Elder says, good morning, and nice to hear you this morning. Nice beard, sir. And Vanonia says, connected speech is American English is not so easy, especially when talking to Americans from countryside. Yeah, so people are going to blend their speech and say things and put them together. And that's, I don't know what language that would not be true for. I don't know if there is a language where people actually speak clearly like robots. So we call it connected speech, but it's basically how everybody talks normally when they're speaking in just an informal way. All right, so the best way to prepare for that, just like I'm talking about in this video, is to see lots of examples. But you need to focus your example like hearing something from a teacher and then seeing other people talking about that same thing. All right, that's going to prepare you a lot better than just like watching some random content and not understanding what's going on. All right. If you'd like to see how we do this, is the exact format of Fluent for Life. The reason we built the program like that is because it actually is a great way for you to understand the language, to get lots of naturally varied review, and to prepare for conversations before you speak. So if you'd like to get fluent before you speak, click on the link in the description below this video, and you'll see how to do that. All right. Looks like last kind of final questions here. Manolin says, good evening from the Dominican Republic. And Shang says, morning, Drew. Thank you for your great lessons. Does ditching doubts apply to writing? I sense that speaking and writing are both the same as using English, but with different wording. Yeah, I mean, it would be the same thing. So reading a lot, or actually writing things and seeing examples of how other people do it. So if you read something interesting and you try to copy that down, that will improve your writing and speaking. Like, imagine describing a sunset. How might a bunch of really good authors describe that? Like, people would describe that in an infinite number of ways. And so if you're looking at all those, it would improve your writing, it would improve your speech, you would learn a lot of different, interesting ways of connecting things. And last one looks like, it's so tiny over here, I can't see. Looks like sun, looks like water. I don't know the Chinese, I'm guessing that's Chinese, but is that water star? I don't know if that's the same thing in Chinese or not. I can't understand clearly. Next phrase, that is, our official wedding photos are out. Yeah, it means they're publicly available. Can we use textbook English when we write? Yeah, sure. The point is, it's not like textbook English is bad, it's just incomplete. So if you're thinking about how do I prepare for real communication, some textbook English is going to be useful, but also you should be getting examples of how natives actually communicate. So if you never speak and you don't care about watching movies or TV shows or whatever, you probably don't need to watch my videos either then. But if you don't care about speaking, then you don't really need to learn that information. But if you want to understand movies and TV shows and newspapers and like anything else that's English related, then it's a good idea to move beyond the textbook English and then, get like the real information, the real things that natives use. And Ganesh says, with a beard, you're not like Tom Hanks anymore. No, Tom Hanks in Castaway, he still had a beard. So he actually grew out the beard in Castaway. When people say I look like Tom Hanks, they're probably talking about Forrest Gump, that character specifically, because I have short hair. But I don't think Forrest Gump had a beard in that movie. I don't remember. Anyway, it's not important. But yes, I'm glad. Maybe I'll do like half and half. I'm going to shave half the beard off so people can't tell if I look like Tom Hanks or not. But interestingly, it's only like people who watch this channel that think that. All right, well, have a fantastic day. Again, if you'd like to see how this works and just have me do all this hard work for you, click on the link in the description. John Renault as well. Yeah, John Renault, that's right. All right, well, have a fantastic day. Click on the links in the descriptions to learn more both about Frederick and Fluent for Life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.